Welcome to my new channel, episode 1, Big Nasty Brain. There's a story behind that name, but I'll save that for a later episode. What is this? Well, this is me ranting about my favorite albums, movies, musicians, stuff about sports. I don't want to narrow myself to one topic. I like a lot of things and I like to rant about a lot of things. Today I'm going to be doing my top guitar players. It's not 10, it's maybe a little more than that, but I'll try to keep it to the point, short and sweet. Nobody wants to watch a 45-minute video. Some of you wonder, how could you possibly leave these guys off your list? But this is my list. These are my favorite guitar players. These are the guys that make me feel something when I hear them play. I'll tell you what this channel will not be, is a diss channel. I'm not going to be telling you what my least favorite guitar players are, my least favorite songs. Who am I to tell you what to like or not like? Every one of us has a connection to a music or a movie or a guitar player or whatever because of where we heard them, the circumstances, what the song made us feel or think when we heard it. This also isn't going to be a channel about screaming at clouds. I'm not going to rant and rave and diss on things. You like what you like. And nobody wants to hear the ramblings of an old man screaming about how things were better in the good old days. I'm just going to try to expose you to stuff that I like and stuff that I think is worth listening to, and maybe you'll discover some new things along the way. There are a lot of great guitar players out there that will not be on my list, and that's not a diss on them or disrespect for them in any regard whatsoever, but this is not your usual suspects. And I wanted to make it that way so to encourage conversation about lesser known artists, maybe get you to go check out some movies or music that you've never heard before. This is more about exploration and discovery, about me sharing my past experiences and my favorites. I look forward to hearing your feedback in the comments. Keep it positive. And with that, I'm going to just kick off my list. These are in no particular order. Depends on the day, the mood I'm in, what I want to listen to. But this isn't a 10-to-1 kind of list. This is just my list of my favorite guitar players, guys that I really like. I will have a top 3. I'll let you know when we get there. But to kick it off, I'm going to throw out Brad Whitford and Joe Perry from Aerosmith. Aerosmith is truly the quintessential American rock band. And their 3-album run from Get Your Wings to Toys in the Attic and Rocks have some of the best guitar work, riffs, solos of any band in the 70s. I love the way they play off each other, the juxtaposition of the rhythm and the riffs and the chord voicings. Like, check out No More, No More. The chord voicings in the background of the verse are mind-blowing. I mean, the riff's great too, and I don't think Brad Whitford gets nearly enough credit. I know everybody thinks of Joe Perry when they think of Aerosmith, but Brad does so much of the guitar work and some great solos. And the two of them together are just phenomenal. They're going out on tour with the Joe Perry project soon. I'm hoping to maybe find a chance to catch them. So that kicks off my list. Next up on the list is my favorite guitar player from my favorite grunge era band, STB, and that's Dean DeLeo. Dean's playing is very reminiscent of a lot of Jimmy Page's stuff, and you can definitely hear the influence, but some of his riffs and solos are just great. STP4 is one of my favorite albums of all time. So moving right along, my next player is Alex Lifeson from Rush. When I was a kid, we used to have the Columbia Record Club where you could buy like 13 albums for a penny, and then you'd have to buy 5 or 6 albums for twice the normal retail price to fulfill the agreement with the club. I must have joined that club 4 or 5 times. And one time I took a chance on a Rush album called Hemispheres. His work on things like La Villa Strangiata it's just amazing. The sounds that he gets out of his guitar, the textures, unlike any other player. So Alex, I think, is underrated. Sometimes he's on these lists, sometimes he's not, but he's definitely on my list. Next up is a guitar player many of you maybe don't know. Those of you who are in the know will know. His name is Phil Keaggy. Very big in the Christian rock music scene, but he recently did an album with Tony Levin called Bucket List, And Phil, I've seen Phil many times. Sometimes he's just with himself and his guitar, and he uses a loop, and his just amazing imagination with the guitar. I put him in the same group as someone like a Tommy Emmanuel, just phenomenal players that don't get a lot of discussion. There was rumor in certain circles that Jimi Hendrix was once asked who his favorite guitar player was, and he said Phil Keaggy. I'm not sure that that's true. No one's ever verified that that was actually said. But I know he did say it about my next player on my list, which is Billy Gibbons from ZZ Top. The Guello is another record that I just wore the grooves out on when I was a kid. His guitar work at the end of Cheap Sunglasses. I'll go back and listen to that clip at the end just to hear that bit over and over again. The string harmonics that he gets, and the biting tone. I've heard that he plays with a quarter, which helps give him that kind of tone. I don't know if that's true or not, but I love his style and his tone. Next up on my list is a guy you probably never heard of. His name is Roger Steen. He's with a band called The Tubes. The Tubes have two different phases. They have the A&M records and they have the Capitol records. The Capitol records, produced by David Foster, is where you get things like She's a Beauty and Talk to You Later. The first of those two albums, Completion Backwards Principle, is a great record. It's one of those, every track is great, you can listen to the whole way through. But those first albums with A&M, especially their debut record is amazing. And all of the players are phenomenal. Prairie Prince on drums, to me, is one of the best drummers out there. Check him out on Tip of My Tongue. I'll add a link to that below. They had Vince Welnick on keyboards, who was amazing. I'll put a link to Smoke La Vie en Fumée from The Tubes, which he just shines on that song. And the whole band was incredibly talented. Bill Spooner, rhythm and lead guitars and shared lead vocals. Their imagination, the stuff they came up with. But Roger Steen, I've seen him live more times than I can count. And speaking of The Tubes, their fourth record, or fifth if you count the live one, called Remote Control, was produced by my next player, who is Todd Rundgren. If you look up Todd Rundgren on YouTube, you're most likely going to find Hello, It's Me. And Todd was an amazing pop songwriter, right up there with like Carole King and some of the others in the early 70s pop stuff. But he's also an amazing guitar player, and he's a pioneer in the prog genre with a band called Utopia, who later became more pop and more rock than prog. But they started out as a prog rock group. You know, with the Utopia album, there's a song called Icon. It's like the whole side. But amazing guitar work. And he's played on a lot of stuff. You maybe didn't know it was him, like Bad Out of Hell by Meatloaf. He's done some work with Cheap Trick. His list of projects he's produced is extensive. It's definitely worth looking into. As a songwriter and a singer, he's often been compared a lot to Daryl Hall, and the two of them have actually toured together. But Todd's another one of those Philly white soul guys with an amazing voice, amazing instinct for melody. Songwriting is incredible, but his guitar playing is exceptional and doesn't get nearly enough credit. And speaking of the Tubes again, in their second half in Capitol, with David Foster producing, he brought in a lot of the guys from Toto, in particular Steve Lukather, who co-wrote some of that material, played the guitar solo on Talk to You Later, and some other numbers. But Luke is an amazing guitar player. You can listen to the vamp at the end of Rosanna, or my favorite guitar solo of his is this short, sweet, very melodic, haunting solo in I Won't Hold You Back Now. I think that's what it's called. I'll put a correction in the video if that's not what it's called. And I'll put a link to it. There's a live performance in Paris, I think 1993. It's just amazing. Gives you chills. And Steve Lukather, he's incredible. He's played with so many people. Michael Jackson, he's been out with Ringo Starr's all-star band quite a bit. But you gotta remember, these guys were studio players in LA. They were like the new Wrecking Crew, Toto. And Steve Lukather's got so many credits. He's such a great player. Doesn't get nearly enough credit. Yeah, moving on to my next pick, a guy you maybe have never heard of. His name is Chris Whitley. He had a debut album in the early 90s called Living with the Law, produced by Danielle Lanois. And it's a very unique style guitar playing. It's a lot of like Delta blues kind of stuff. He plays a steel top guitar, which has a very unique sound. A lot of slide work, but it's very distinctive and very emotive. I managed to catch him live twice, once with his band and once just himself. And when we caught him by himself, he played the entire album except for one song called Dust Radio, which is probably the best song on the record, that and Big Sky Country. And we begged him to play it. He went ahead and did it. And it was just amazing. It just proves that good material transcends the instrumentation. A good song is a good song. And that album is amazing. And unfortunately, we lost Chris to lung cancer. And I highly recommend you check him out. Again, I'll put links in the description below. Next guy on my list, who I don't think gets enough credit, is Terry Kath of Chicago. Soulful, bluesy, killer rock guitar player, amazing voice. Again, we lost him way too soon, but Terry's amazing. There's a performance live of I'm a Man in 25 or 6 to 4, which I'll put links to those down below. But those first few albums by Chicago, especially the CTA album, Chicago Transit Authority, it's a great, great record, and Terry's amazing. He also has a song at the end of a movie with Robert Blake called Electric Glide Blue, which I've tried to find it elsewhere so I could add it to my collection, but it's a great song that Terry Kath sings and plays at the end of that movie. If you've ever seen it, it's worth checking out. It's a very interesting movie. And then for any of you that's been paying attention and seen my shirt, you'd be no surprise where I'm going next on my list with Ty Tabor, the guitar player for the mighty King's X. A 3-piece prog metal, Texas rock, Beatles meets Sabbath, as they've been described. I don't think that's a sufficient description because it lacks capturing all the soul that's in their music and the funk. Doug Pinnick, their bass player and singer, who I think is maybe the best singer in rock, or at one time was. I mean, everybody loses a little bit with age, and Doug's getting up there. I think he's 73 or 74 at the time of this recording. Still kicking it, still playing live, still touring, still has an amazing voice. But in their heyday, nobody sounded like him. And there's a lot of Sly and the Family Stone, a lot of, gospel influence. And lyrically, the band is very spiritual. But I'm going to link to a couple of his solos down below. 3 in particular, It's Love, Prisoner and Big Picture. Prisoner and Big Picture are songs that are back-to-back on their 4th album. And I don't think there's a better 1-2 punch of guitar solos anywhere. So if you haven't heard Ty, check him out. He's amazing. He's also done some stuff with a band called Platypus. And he's played on some other things as well. But King's X, a band that's highly underrated, and their guitar player even more so. How he's not in every top 10 list is just a matter of ignorance on the part of those making the list. Next on my list, a guy that I managed to catch live back in the mid-'80s when he was on tour for his solo album called About Face, is David Gilmour. Never seen Pink Floyd live, but I've certainly listened to their stuff enough. It's just a part of my DNA at this point. But those 3 albums, Dark Side, Wish You Were Here, and Animals, some of the best guitar playing. And then even on the wall, things like Comfortably Numb, Another Brick in the Wall Part 2, One of These Days. Just great, great stuff. David makes a guitar sing like no one else. His bends, his phrasings, the atmosphere he creates, just amazing guitar player. So needless to say, he's in my top 3. Ty started my top 3, and David. And then my number one guy, who again, like I said, I'm not really trying to rate these guys because there's guys that I've left off the list that I think are fantastic guitar players. They're just not on this list. There usually are. People like Jimmy Page and Jimi Hendrix and Stevie Ray Vaughan. They're amazing players. And even some of the rock players, the heavy metal players that are out there, Tommy Iommi and the guys from Judas Priest and, people like Kirk Hammett. And, these are all great players, but they're just not in my top personal list. But number one for me is Jeff Beck. If you've never checked him out, done a deep dive, check out Wired, Blow by Blow, and There and Back. Those 3 albums, amazing. And Jeff's been doing it for a long time. First with the Yardbirds, and then the Jeff Beck Group, and then just Jeff Beck, and then he's gone out and done some work with other people. Like, I know he had a kind of a hit with Rod Stewart on the People Get Ready thing that he did, and of course Johnny Depp brought some attention to him. But Jeff's an amazing player. The first time I heard Since We've Ended as Lovers off the Blow by Blow record, I thought I was listening to a saxophone. Just the tones and the fluidity and the bends, and his phrasings, again, just incredible. And it's not like he does it with a lot of trick stuff, So this is my list. No disrespect to those other guys. I love Eddie Van Halen. Fair Warning, it's one of my favorite records. Yeah, so love to hear your thoughts on it. I'm probably going to do a little bit of a deep dive into some of these guys. I want to do a series focusing on a band that has 3 great albums in a row. I already mentioned Aerosmith with Get Your Wings, Toys in the Attic, and Rocks. I mentioned David Gilmour with Dark Side and Wish You Were Here and Animals. But a lot of these artists and other bands too that have these great little arcs of 3 or 4 records that were just great, that I think where the band's peaked. And I want to do a series kind of focused on some of that stuff as well. So stay tuned. Sorry about the audio. I don't have a microphone yet. If this catches on, maybe I'll invest in one and give you better sound quality. Anyhow, I look forward to seeing you the next time. Cheers.